House of Representatives demands improved performance in the power sector. Cybersecurity bill to establish Chartered Institute of Computer Forensics of Nigeria gathers momentum. And NTA ends commendation for 2021 budget performance. Hello, welcome to You and Your Reps. I am Victor Azo. Thank you for joining us. The House of Representatives Committee on Power says federal government's huge investment in the power sector, which from 2015 to date amounts to more than 900 billion naira, should be justified by regulators and operators in this sector. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the committee gave a pointer during budgetary appraisals and projections with some agencies in the sector.
At this engagement with the Rural Electrification Agency, the House Committee on Power frowned at delays in the completion of solar projects, which the federal government took up as an alternative for the provision of electricity to improve socio-economic activities and livelihoods in rural communities across the country. The Rural Electrification Agency explains that more than 22 billion naira has been released for 264 projects spread across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria.
After we complete these projects, we have a situation where, we don't get certified immediately by NEMSA. The same as the discos as well. We also have that issue of after completion of projects, the discos have not been able to electrify in some communities.
The committee also met with the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission.
The general power issue in this country which is pretend over. We don't know who to blame, whether it is the GENCOs, whether it is the transmission problem, whether it is the discos.
It charged management to live up to its mandate. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Public Service Matters at a budget defense session with the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, the committee called for capacity building for all categories of workers.
You cannot have a resourceful civil servant until and unless when you train them. Training is very important, and I want to key in here that we appreciate you for the concern you have on the training of the civil service.
We discovered that we don't have planning officers, so most of the NDAs are having a lot of problems with the planning functions, and so we have started training planning officers in collaboration with NISA.
The Civil Service Institute also met the Committee for Budget Defense.
In today's digital world, cybersecurity is a necessity, whether as individuals, organizations, or government. Now, the House Committee on Science and Technology is providing legislative intervention to tackle cybercrime.
The Computer Forensics Institute of Nigeria was incorporated in 2008 following government's approval. What Parliament seeks to do is to have it upgraded, show legal backing to further enable local research and development of digital forensic equipment, software and tools.
To improve our criminal justice system to reflect the realities of this new age, where digital and computer forensics play a more important role than at any other time in human history.
This bill could not have come at a better time than now, that the nation is faced with a myriad of security challenges. The bill seeks to provide electronic evidence in solving all manners of crimes without exception.
The Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation highlighted the benefits of the legislation.
One of it is to enhance public safety, national security through improved and speedy investigation of cybercrimes.
In another development, the House Committee on Health is collaborating with the National Health Insurance Scheme to capture constituents in the scheme.
We are expanding the coverage of average Nigerians under NHIS. We are also increasing the pool of funds available for HHIS, and that money is not only meant to only provide care. There's also a portion of it that will be used for facility maintenance.
10% of that premium, whatever comes to us, will be used as an administrative cost for running NHIS. We are good to go and continue to provide the services without any break.
The idea is to enable lawmakers have people from their communities benefit from the scheme under constituency projects.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Television Authority has again received a pat on the back from the House of Representatives for judicious management of resources, as evident in its budget performance for 2021. It was at an appearance before the House Committee on Information for Budget Appraisal and Projection.
As the foremost public television broadcast media for Nigeria, the committee says NTA has been efficient in service delivery.
DG NTA, good presentation. I also want to congratulate you on your budget performance 2021, because if we look at it very well, you perform all round.
NTA has the best hands in this country, and I can tell you that almost all the stations, almost all the television centers in this country, most of their staffs are from NTA.
The chairman of the committee, Segun Odebumi, used the opportunity to urge government-owned information dissemination outfits to do more on youth development.
If you consider what is really going on in the country right now, every agency needs to contribute a lot in developing our youth, especially this life after this COVID. Things are very difficult for people.
The Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, appreciated the effort of the committee in its passion for adequate funding, stressing that this would enhance the digitization process.
We have competition among other issues. The competition, for example, not every part of NTA is digitized, So, for example, you have a digital camera, you go out with a digital camera. You bring in pictures using a digital camera. Then in the process of transmission, you transmit using analog equipment. So at the end of the day, the pictures are not as bad as they should be.
Other organizations, as the Budget Defense, also highlighted challenges in their operations due to paucity of funds.
We are facing the same challenges of equipment being viewed as government-owned media houses that that we are expected to give free coverage despite some of the costs that we have to bear.
If our agency is well funded and we are able to live up to the expectation, we will create more jobs.
We have 813 offices around the country. We cannot even say that any of our state offices receives as minimum as 10,000 naira a month.
The committee will soon go on oversight for physical and other assessments of the various agencies.
Ministries, departments and agencies of government are currently sweating it out as they make a case for their 2022 spending plans. And so, you hear the word budget a lot, but you'll also hear the term appropriation. Some people use them interchangeably. What is the difference between both terms and perhaps similarities? Let's find out.
Budget is the summation of all the proposals. So every year, the president collects together all the proposals of the various ministries and extra-ministerial departments and then compile them into a proposed law, appropriation bill, which is now laid before the national joint sitting of the National Assembly. Now, when the bill, or whatever you call it, the budget, because sometimes the terms are interchangeable. Budgetary proposal, Appropriation Act, okay, they are all interchangeable. When the bill now is presented before the National Assembly, various committees of the National Assembly will now deliberate, invite the ministries and extra-ministerial departments to defend the proposals tabled by Mr. President on behalf of all the ministries and agencies. When it is passed into law, it has now become an act. It is no longer, it's now an appropriation act. It's no longer an ordinary budgetary proposal. It is now a law, a breach of which can even attract an impeachment.
For once, since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999, there seems to be a strong indication that the National Assembly will finally have a library to aid research and legislation. As a statement of intent, the House of Representatives set up the Legislative Library, Research and Documentation Committee. Now, with less than 2 years to go in the life of the 9th House of Representatives, how far gone is the project? We took this question to Chairman of the committee, Gaza, Jonathan Gbefui. He represents the Karu, Kefi, Kokona Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State.
The major tool of every legislator is actually supposed to be the library, as well as research. It is from research that you are able to make laws. It is from research you are able to bring in best practice into whatever you're doing. Remember, you make laws not just for the present, but for the future as well. And that is why you realize that a lot of our laws are said to be outdated, and you hear of repealing, reenactment, and amendments. Now, if you do not have a sound library, or a sound research system, or a deep repository of knowledge, you'd find out that the laws that are churned out or that are passed become very light. They are not weighty, neither are they deep. And when passed or challenged in the law courts, you find out that you have so much lacunas and so much open-ended cases. So these are things that led to this committee being established. And of course, the largest library in the world, it will shock you to know, is actually the Library of Congress. It is the library of a legislative arm in a country, the USA. So bearing all this in mind, and of course, that is where we have adopted our system of governance from, that we're running under this democratic dispensation in Nigeria. Bearing all this in mind, I mean, in my opinion, the committee came too late, but it is never too late. We've gone quite far. In fact, as we speak, there is already a building that is coming up within the precinct of the National Assembly. A lot of research and work has gone in. That is the infrastructural side. Even on the side, the intellectual side, I had the opportunity of visiting the Library of Congress in the USA, and a lot of relationships. There's been a lot of correspondence between this establishment and that one. Apart from that, so many other well-meaning Nigerian establishments are ready to partner with the National Assembly to strengthen our research and library arm. Before now, what we had was, I would not want to call it a makeshift library, because as you know, the library is still in construction. It's still an ongoing project. There's a phase 2, there's a phase 3. The library was to come in phase 3, part 3. But of course, because of the huge amount of work that will go into it, among other things, in the wisdom of the technical persons management in consultation with the presiding officers. A new site was gotten, and of course with the FCDA, the authorizing authorities, a new site was gotten, and an independent building is being built for the library. And I can assure you, when completed, every Nigerian will be proud to have that as a library for your national legislature. The building just kicked off. Of course, you know that in a building there are so many processes. There's a consultative stage and the design and everything. But I'm glad to say that they've actually hit the ground. And because of the urgency, we didn't wait to even have a formal groundbreaking or ceremony or something. They hit the ground and immediately continued. And in order to make sure we complete it in good time, that is why, amongst other things, the House, in its wisdom, this committee, and under my leadership, we put together a bill. And it will shock you to know that this bill that we've introduced in Nigeria in the year 2021 was introduced in America in the year 1925, which is the National Assembly, which is the Trust for National Assembly Trust Fund Bill. And it's simple. We're not asking for any percentage or anything, but all we want is to be able to have a legal platform where we can reach out to well-meaning Nigerians, international partners, under a legal framework and get funds to supplement whatever budgetary provisions will be made. So the library is going to be a state-of-the-art one, audiovisuals. It's going to have the e-library. It's going to have, of course, apart from very large archival facilities and infrastructure, it's going to have a very interactive model with regards to where legislators can actually relate with intellectual material that will aid their research. And of course, it's going to serve as a fellowship center where people from all over the world can come and have a first-hand feel of what legislative experiences is about. You go around just like you have in other climes of the world.
Clearly, engagements between the legislature and ministries, departments and agencies of government on the 2022 appropriation bill is ongoing. But what is the feeling among ordinary Nigerians? You and your reps went to the streets to get a sense of it.
What was allocated for education was quite low, even health. I think those are the paramount things that should be looked into. But I hope the education budget will be increased.
One would have loved to see a greater percentage of the budget being deployed to capital projects. But given the structure of governance and the cost of governance, it's almost impracticable.
Since they have not been able to execute 2021 project, I think most of the projects should be rolled over to 2022. So that people can have a dividend of democracy.
There should be adequate budgetary provision, first and foremost, to take care of the educational sector of the country, then health, followed by security.
Education is power. More money should be spent on education, not on security that more or less to me has become an industry. In this country, we should invest in our youths. And secondly, I don't understand why we keep saying that Nigeria is not developing. We have to import finished vehicle, finish this, finish everything. Why can't this Japanese company, Chinese company come to Nigeria, set up factories or assembly plant or whatever it may be called, so Nigerian youths that have finished school can work there and develop their skill in the process.
This week on You and Your Reps, we engaged the Deputy Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations, Iduma Igariwey, to give us an insight into the workings of his committee and an update on the 2022 appropriation.
The Committee on Appropriations in particular has the privilege and the challenge of handling the national fund allocation for the Federation on behalf of the National Assembly. So it is the mandate of the Committee on Appropriations to undertake this all-important assignment on behalf of the National Assembly. As we often say, the most important assignment we often do, of course our assignment is lawmaking, but what we consider the most important assignment is the money bill, which falls within the responsibility of the Appropriation Committee. So that in a nutshell is our job, how to share, so to speak, our national cake, so that it is judiciously done. Like you know, that is also the job of the National Assembly, but the National Assembly particularly appropriates this assignment to the Committee of Appropriations. We all work hand in hand as a matter of procedure. After Mr. President presents the budget estimates as contemplated under Section 81 of the Constitution, which Mr. President did on the 7th of October, the various committees of the National Assembly are deemed to be subcommittees of the Committee on Appropriations. So they all become our subcommittees so that we can work harmoniously towards doing the assignment, producing a fair and efficient budget for the country. The budget process expects the National Assembly to interrogate how the previous budget worked out. So by virtue of our responsibility under Section 88 of the Constitution, oversight, it becomes almost mandatory for us to visit the MDAs, the ministries, departments and agencies, to oversight them, to see how the budget was implemented. Like, you know, budget is a process. It's not just to formulate it. It's not just for the National Assembly to legitimize it. You also have to implement the budget. So the only way we can come to terms with the realities of implementation is when we oversight. So that precisely is what all the committees right now, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, that's what they are doing. So we merely decided to give, because we can't combine it with plenary. There's no way you can go to the chambers at the same time, create time to go and oversight the ministries, the MDAs. So what we have done now is to create time for the various committees to oversight the various ministries and departments and agencies. So at the end of the day, the Committee on Appropriations will draw up a guideline that will guide the procedure here. You know, the guideline that will guide how the various committees interact with the MDAs. There's a guideline on that. There's also a guideline on timelines, because by virtue of our rules, I think Rule 18, Order 18, Rule 15, we are supposed to do this process within 30 days of the presentation of the budget estimates by Mr. President. So that's what we are doing now. It's a very important cycle, which didn't come easy, because in previous years we've not had this privilege of the executive bringing the budget within the time it will allow Parliament to do their job the way they are supposed to do it, and present it for the President's assent within the year. Now, in the past 3 years or so, either 2 years or 3 years, Mr. President has done well to bring the budget before December. Before now, we've had it sometimes after December. So now we've had it on the 7th. And the challenge for us will be to make sure that the MDAs also cooperate with us in terms of presenting themselves before the various committees, and then also the appropriate officers presenting themselves, because that could also create delay. You find out that most agencies or ministries or departments will send junior staff who may not be in a position to answer questions put before them. And sometimes members may also not be very happy that the chief executives are excluding themselves from the process. So long as the executive or the heads of these various MDAs come when they are invited, come with the relevant documents, and come and defend issues that may be raised. We are looking at the 14th of December to present the budget for consideration, and probably the next day we could pass the budget.
We certainly do wish the National Assembly well as it strikes that delicate balance between doing a thorough job and sustaining the January to December budget cycle. And that's you and your reps for the week. Thanks for your time. I am Victor Azo. See you next time.